you have Hashimoto's. And I'm like, okay, so what's the next step? What do we do? And he's like, well, there's not really anything that we're going to do. Can't really do anything about it. I couldn't function. I couldn't be a mom to my daughter. I felt like I couldn't be the wife I wanted to be to my husband. I couldn't get out of my own head.
I do a symptom questionnaire where you basically put from 1 to 5, what is the severity of your symptoms?
Yep.
0 being no symptoms at all to 5 being severe, right? So after 3 months, you had a 42% improvement. After 6 months, you had a 60%. And after a year working together, you had an 80% improvement.
Yeah.
Your score went from 252 to 57. Sometimes we take for granted the most important gift in our life, our health. That is, of course, until we start to develop symptoms that impact our day-to-day activities and slowly over time get worse. And then the diagnosis comes and fear sets in. How we choose to handle that fear, though, is up to us. Do we just accept it, deal with the consequences of the disease, and idly watch our future be limited by it? Or do you get in the driver's seat, learn everything you can about it, and create the right support system to ensure that nothing will stop you from attaining all your future plans and dreams? In the case of my guest, she was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis after the birth of her daughter. I had the pleasure of being part of her health journey, and I wanted to bring her story to you with all its moments of darkness and light to show you all the beautiful possibilities that life can bring when you are steadfast and determined to heal and not let the disease hold you back. So allow me to introduce you to Sarah Bowser. She considers herself to be that weird, nerdy mom, the one who always struggled with belonging and with finding her place in the world. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
What is your story? When did you start to realize that something was wrong?
It was a kind of a long, like a slow burn type of situation. So during my pregnancy with my daughter, I put on a ridiculous amount of weight, like more weight than you probably should during a pregnancy. And it was edema, it was a lot of swelling and water retention where like I could poke my ankle and it would just leave an indent for a while.
Okay.
And so I had my daughter, just kind of going along. I'm continually doing all of these different diets and exercise programs and all of this other stuff just to try to feel like I'm getting back to who I should be, who I was. And I'm not losing any weight. I'm doing Whole30. I'm doing paleo. I'm doing all of like the things that all of the different people screaming at you all the time with all of the the hype are telling you, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and nothing was working. My skin, I felt like I was coming out of my skin on a daily basis where like my skin was dry and peeling and itchy. My hair was just like coming out, and like I would brush my hair in the morning and it was just like, this is disgusting. Looking at my hairbrush, I could not lose weight for the life of me. Like nothing was working. And I went to my primary at the time and I was like, look, like this is what's going on. Like I need help. And their response was basically, well, what are you just asking? What do you want? Like, do you want like a weight loss pill? And I'm like, no, I want to know why I feel like crap all the time. I want to know, like, yeah, I want to know why I can't lose weight, but I want to know like what's going on.
Right.
And so they were like, all right, well, before we put you on a weight loss pill, we're gonna like, that's not what I'm saying, but before we do that, we're going to test we're gonna test your thyroid, and we'll do a thyroid ultrasound. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it. So they tested my TSH and did the ultrasound. Didn't test anything else. No other blood work, just TSH. Then that came back on the higher end, that I would learn later based on the research that I would end up doing, but it was still considered in normal range.
Mm-hmm.
And the thyroid ultrasound came back with a nodule on it. And based on like the measurements that I saw, they said it seemed like it was a pretty large nodule compared to the size of what your thyroid is. I'm like, all right. And I asked, like, is this like, should I be worried about this? Like, oh no, like it is what it is. Like, we're not gonna do anything. And I'm like, but they're like, this report is saying that it's like concerning and that it like is abnormal and not like, shouldn't we take that into consideration? And they basically just dismissed me over and over. And at that point, I was kind of like, all right, screw this. I'm going to find a new doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I got myself a new primary care doctor. I got myself into an endocrinologist, and they did, he redid the ultrasound, he redid the blood work, this time including like T4, antibodies, all other things that actually tell you what's going on with your thyroid rather than just TSH. And so we did that, and then he sent me for a thyroid biopsy, just to make sure it wasn't cancer. So at this point, my daughter is about 9 months old, and we're starting to get to that point, like, all right, like, let's start thinking about having another baby. Let's start thinking about, okay, like how much of an age difference do we want between our kids? Like, my sister and I are 2.5 years apart. Jake and his sister are a year apart. Him and his brother are further apart, like 4 years, I think. And so it's like, so we were like having that conversation, like, all right, Amelia's almost 1. Do we want to start having that conversation about having another baby? And we decided that we were ready to start. We were ready to, all right, because it took me 4 years the first time to get pregnant with my daughter. And we're like, all right, if we don't want to have a huge age gap between them, let's start now. Mm-hmm. So in the midst of us deciding that we're going to start trying for another baby, I'm at work. I'm sitting at work in this rinky-dink conference room in a random city hall. And I get a phone call. It's like 8:30 in the morning, like, get a phone call, and it's the endocrinologist, and he's like, good news, it's not cancer. I'm like, okay. All right, don't have cancer. Awesome. Yeah, he's like, you have Hashimoto's. And I'm like, okay, so what's the next step? What do we do? And he's like, well, there's not really anything that we're gonna do. Can't really do anything about it. It's just gonna, you're just gonna keep, like, your thyroid's just gonna keep breaking down, dying, and by the way, if you decide that if you get pregnant, like, you'll most likely have a miscarriage. And then he ended the phone call. And I am just kind of sitting there in shock. Like, I'm in the field, I'm on an assignment, I'm trading somebody with, so I have someone brand new right next to me that I'm supposed to be training and like helping learn this job. And I just get like, the first thing that came to my mind was like, I wish this was cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm just like, at least then I know what I'm dealing with and there's a plan of attack. This was just like, it is what it is. Nothing we can do. Don't expect to have another kid.
Like, great. You finally find the doctor who's going to do everything to explore.
Yeah.
Find, but then you don't get a plan afterwards. Like,
yeah,
what do you do now?
It was basically, okay, here's what it is. Good luck.
Right. You're on your own.
Yeah. And then I had a follow up with my new primary care doctor, and I was kind of sharing like how I was struggling, and I was not in a good mental space. And I told her that. And I told her, I am struggling with this. And she's like, I don't understand what the big deal is. It's basically just hypothyroidism. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm telling you that I'm struggling, that there's got to be something that we can do, because I'm being told that I'm not going to have another kid. I'm being told that my thyroid is just going to keep breaking down, and like everything that I'm going through is just going to keep getting worse. And you're telling me, it's just hypothyroidism. You're overreacting.
Right. It's easy. Take a pill. It's done. You're fixed.
Well, at first they weren't even going to give me a pill. They weren't going to give me anything. Like I called the endocrinologist's office on a Saturday in tears saying, I am struggling. I want to have an appointment to follow up on this and come up with a plan. And only then did I get put on a very low dose of levothyroxine. And it was just kind of like, all right.
And as far as the Hashimoto's, there was really no action plan for that.
No, there was no plan for the Hashimoto's. It was basically, all right, here's your levothyroxine, your T4 medication. We'll do blood work every few months just to make sure the levels are good. And that's that. And I was like, all right, so this is just going to basically make sure I can function on a basic level, but it's not going to do anything to help anything else. And it got to the point where that by the time, we're going, that was like the beginning of May that finally happened. And by the beginning of July, I was just in such a bad headspace that I was considering suicide, because I was at that point where I couldn't function. I couldn't be a mom to my daughter. At least I felt that I couldn't be a mom to my daughter. The mom that I wanted to be. I felt like I couldn't be the wife I wanted to be to my husband. I couldn't get out of my own head and thinking of, I can't do this for them. I can't do this for them. I can't do that. I can't do any of this stuff.
Right.
That I've always thought I was going to do. They'd be better off without me. And then she's not going to know any better. She's just over a year old.
Yeah. It's incredible what our minds tell us.
Yeah.
While we're in that headspace.
Yeah. My husband will find someone else. She'll be a better wife. She'll be a better mother to my daughter. It's just, and so we always had these annual 4th of July parties in the neighborhood. So 4th of July, and it's always in our backyard with our neighbors, our neighbors in our backyard. It's just everybody. It's like this huge thing, parade. It's this huge party, and so of course there's alcohol involved, and of course, and we bring our daughter up to bed. We've got the monitor. We're just out at the party, and she starts to cry. So we both go in, trying to get her back to sleep, calm her down, comfort her. And the alcohol made me do it. I admitted everything that I was feeling to my husband. And that was kind of like the switch that went off in my brain.
The turning point.
Yeah, because I watched what my husband's face went from just trying to calm our daughter to this pure devastation. And it was that moment that was like, all right, I have to fight. I have to do something. I have to do something to get out of this. So then it became more of, all right, research mode. I bought all of the books that I could find.
And I do want to say something. I want to interject here for a minute before we continue. For anyone who's listening to this, it's already hard enough as women as well. You know, we go through our postpartum depression, right? And many times Hashimoto's is activated post-pregnancy. And when you are adding a postpartum depression or not, but then you're adding another layer of an autoimmune condition on top of that, and then the loneliness and the dark places that you go to are so scary, right?
Yep.
Because at that moment you don't see a way out.
No.
Whether it was alcohol or not, but you spoke up and you reached out and you let someone know what was happening. So if anyone who's watching this, you know, listening to this, you know, and you're feeling this way, I want to make sure that, you know, you understand that you're not alone. Reach out, get help. So many who feel this way, you know, especially after a diagnosis that maybe don't know what to do next, you know, make sure that you're asking for help.
Yeah. And if you don't have that support system with your doctors or even with your own family or friends, like, just find a community online where you can reach out and just be like, hey, this is what's going on. And just keep, even if it doesn't feel like you're going to get that support from the first community that you reach out to, just keep trying. Keep trying. We're out here. We're here.
Yeah. Yeah. So you started researching and then you started looking through books and you started doing things. And then what happened from there?
Yeah. So I got every book on Hashimoto's that I could find. I was trying elimination diets. I was, again, just, all right, what are the foods that are bad for Hashimoto's? What are the foods that are good for Hashimoto's? Like, what can I do to just, like, what supplements do I need? Like, just all of it, just trying to, like, find all of the information and absorb it by osmosis so that I could just, all right, I know what I need to do and I'm just going to go do it. And
yeah,
doesn't really work out.
I got this.
Yeah, I would do really well with sticking with a plan for like a few weeks, a month or two, and then it'd be like, all right, this I don't feel any different. I don't feel any different. Like, this is not working. I'm just gonna go on a crazy binge of junk food, and just trying to process all of it became just so much. And while my doctors were getting a little bit better about it, it was still like, I don't know where to turn. So then it became, all right, let's look into holistic stuff. So I looked for, there's a holistic medicine doctor's office a few towns over from here. I was looking into them, and then it just turned into it like they don't work with insurance. So then it became a cost situation where it was like, for one initial appointment, it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars, where it's like, okay, I can swing it with my Flex card right now, but there's no way I can afford an actual treatment. Like, they can tell me all this stuff and what we could do, but it's like, I wouldn't be able to actually do anything with it because I wouldn't, like, I would bankrupt my family trying to go through it. And so this went on for another year. So we're in but this time we're in the throes of the pandemic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So for 2 years, you're trying to, like, figure this out.
Yeah.
You're going through the process, and then another year of trying to figure this out.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it was just this. So by this time, like, we had gotten pregnant. We had my son, our little COVID baby, and I'm just kind of continuing to trudge along, not able to, again, not losing any weight, not doing, like, starting to feel the blah again, even though I'm on the thyroid meds, because another pregnancy, another postpartum period, like, it was just plus the pandemic and work stress and all of this other stuff just kind of, like, started to snowball on top of each other again. So it was just like, all right, I gotta do something. And I connected with somebody through a course I was taking where we started working together. We were accountability partners for a lot of our stuff, and that led me.
Yeah.
And
hey, thanks to her.
And that led me to being, all right, I have someone who actually is going to listen to what I have to say. We're going to do more like involved in inclusive testing that's going to look at not just one little gland in my body that's malfunctioning, but it's going to look at everything as a whole and look at how everything functions together.
So let me ask you, when we started, do you remember what were your main symptoms? Because obviously we get to a point where we're just like, we can't do this anymore. And I know you mentioned some of them, but if you can just remind us, like, what were those main symptoms?
Yeah. So it will, like a lot of like the same stuff from the beginning was like the hair loss, like the itchiness and crawling out of my skin, like not being able to lose weight. But by that point, it was, with now having a 2-year-old and a 3 or 4-month-old at that point, it was exhaustion. It was fatigue. It was just this, I can't get myself off of the dang couch because I'm just so beat down and exhausted that I'm watching my kids live their lives while I can't function and have the enough energy to live my own and to live a life with them. Yeah.
What do you recall at the time? Because I know this was a little bit ago, but what exactly were your goals initially? Like, what did you hope to gain by starting to work with a coach?
It was, the big dream was to be able to get off the couch and dance around the living room with my kids. Because my daughter just loves music and my son does too now. And it's a constant dance party in our living room. And I was at that point where I couldn't get off the couch to dance with them. And I would dance in my living room all the time growing up, like what I did. I just danced. And to not be able to do that with my kids was heartbreaking, and it was killing me inside. And so like I just wanted to be able to have the energy to be the mom that just does silly dances and throws out her back in the living room with their kid.
I don't think I'll ever forget the first time you told me I got up and danced. It wasn't a long time, but I got up and danced. And I was like, that was like such a big celebratory moment.
Yeah, it was huge
for us. I'll never forget that, Yep. So I know that, you wanted to dance. If I recall too, you wanted to do hiking, you would go to the playground and do all these things, right?
Yeah.
But before we go into like the whole process of it, like, I want you to tell everyone, so what are you doing now? What exactly is Miss Sarah Bowser doing now? Because your goal was to dance in the living room, go to the playground, go for walks, go hiking with your kids, be a mom. So what exactly are you doing now?
Oh, so much. We're having those dance parties in the living room. We go for hikes, we go for walks, we play in the backyard, we do all that stuff that I wanted to do. But beyond that, like I have energy for all of that, but I also have energy for my own stuff too. Like I can be a human for myself again, not just human enough for my kids. So
what are you doing?
So I became a published author last fall by contributing to a couple of book collaborations. I have my own solo book written and ready to go to an editor. That'll come out this year. I have 3 fiction books outlined that I'm working on developing and writing, and I'm doing all of that fun stuff. I'm working on building my own coaching business focused on helping weird, nerdy moms and women like me find belonging and acceptance of who we are, and just without like caring that the world doesn't necessarily like our weird, nerdy ways, but we're still weird and nerdy and it's okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
You also have, and we'll go through this at the end, but do you still have like your Facebook group that you're running?
Yep. And yep. So I have a Facebook group that I run to kind of help build community among weird, nerdy women. I'm working on slowly but surely working on getting a podcast out there. So there's a lot.
Yeah. All that while working a full-time job.
Yep.
Still being a wife and having 2 little ones.
Yep. And now 2 puppies. Yes.
And 2 puppies now.
And 2 puppies.
Yeah. So that's,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And beyond probably what you ever expected to have.
Yeah. I never thought this
when
would
you
happen.
first started this.
Yeah. No, never. I thought,
beauty.
yeah, going from thinking that I'd be better off not even here, and now I'm doing all of this.
I wanted to bring up a little bit, just more informational stuff for the audience.
Yeah.
Because, when we first started our work, I do a symptom questionnaire where you basically put from 1 to 5, what is the severity of your symptoms?
Yep.
0 being no symptoms at all to 5 being severe, right? So I wanted to bring up some of the ones that you pointed out as severe.
Yeah.
And just so that whoever's listening, and if they're going, oh my gosh, yeah, I have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they just from hearing from what your experience, they can also seek help as well.
Absolutely.
And expect and ask, I need thyroid testing, right? I want to make sure that this is not Hashimoto's, right? It's not being ignored. And have a reference to where to go, where to start. That would be great.
Yeah.
So the symptoms that you were most severe were fatigue, sleep disruption, brain fog.
Yep.
And you were even having like stuttering, stammering. It was hard for you to even have a conversation. Yeah, I recall.
Yep.
And your 4s, which are pretty close to 5s, were dizziness, hair loss, poor coordination, tons of GI symptoms.
Oh, yeah.
Bloating, heartburn, rashes, right?
Yep.
Then you had like the joint pain, anxiety, depression, irritability, things like that you were trying to deal with.
Yep.
When we first started, you were at 256 points on that, which was really high. Okay.
Yeah.
So after 3 months, you had a 42% improvement. After 6 months, you had a 60%. And after a year working together, you had an 80% improvement.
Yeah.
Your score went from 252 to 57 in that time. And it was never perfect. And I always say healing is never linear, right?
No, nope.
Get ups.
It's up and down. Yeah.
Down all the time. And I think one of the other things that we did was, there were questions obviously that are asked. And one of them is, I asked if you could remove any thoughts, limitations, or challenges that you feel are stopping you from committing, what would it be? And your answer was self-sabotage, fear of sticking to the plan, and guilt. Yep. So I think we could all get the self-sabotage and the fear of sticking to the plan.
Yep.
And it not working.
Right. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But where was the guilt? Where was that part?
There's a little bit of mom guilt, that proverbial ever-present mom guilt, but guilt of I'm taking away, and that definitely stems from my former people pleasing, changing who I was to fit and make everybody else comfortable. But it was guilt of everyone's going to be mad at me if I'm taking this time to focus on myself. It's guilt for putting myself and my health before everybody else's needs.
Yeah.
And it was just not feeling like I wasn't worthy of that time when everybody else needs so much else too. Like, what about my kids? What about my husband? What about work and friends and other family? And like, it was a lot of guilt around if I'm focusing on myself, I can't give them what they need from me, or what
how dare I
from me. Yeah.
How dare I put myself or think of myself first?
Yeah, exactly.
And the reality is, if you didn't do this, then you wouldn't be able to give them
anything. Yeah.
At all.
Right? Can't pour from an empty cup.
You can't. And that's very common. It's something that's so common anytime we want to do something for ourselves.
Yep.
We're always not everyone, but most of us will feel the level of guilt that I can't do that. I can't put myself first. I can't take care of myself. I can't see this doctor. I can't, start to join this gym. I can't self-care because that would be selfish.
Right.
How dare I? That's so selfish of me.
Yep.
When the reality is that you have to do it. If not, you can't give to anybody else. And then there are no work.
If you can't function, then you're going to be letting them down anyway. So
exactly.
Do you let them down?
As well be yourself, letting them down.
Yeah. If you're going to let them down, like either way, be like,
good about it.
At least make yourself feel better.
Right.
Physically.
Exactly.
If not,
it's so important to look at it from a different perspective, and not look at it as being selfish, but hey, this is actually the most selfless thing I can do.
Yep.
Put myself and take care of myself so that I can take care of you, for sure.
Exactly.
And like I mentioned before, this wasn't a very smooth plan, right? Lots of challenges came up.
Oh, yeah.
Illnesses, social events. How do we manage those things, right?
Yep.
Just life, things that happen, right?
Yeah.
And it can play with your mind a bit, bringing up a lot of limiting beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
And old comforting habits, right? That we want to resort to. Just like you said, I tried to do this on my own, but then I would go and sit and have like a pint of ice cream because it just was comfort, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in this and you're like, oh, this is too hard, I'm just going to give up, right? For the moment. You want to cling to that comfort. So can you share a little bit of what that process was for you? What were some of the, especially when you're working with someone, did that make a difference for you in how you handled those changes compared to when you were by yourself?
Oh my God, it made a huge difference. Okay. Being able to work with you and getting those, like, the accountability. Like, you didn't post your food for lunch. What did you have for lunch? What do you mean? What did I have for lunch? Sarah, what did you have for lunch? Cheese and crackers? That's not lunch. And just like, but like they put beyond
her obsession in the beginning. Yes. Yeah.
But beyond even that, just having the accountability for the mindset pieces too, because getting healthy and coming back from an autoimmune condition or anything, like, it's not just the physical healing, it's mental healing too. And having that accountability for, and that support, and just having that person there to listen to you is important, because throughout the time that we worked together, there was a lot going on. There was craziness at work. There were big family emergencies and family health issues that we were dealing with along the way, where between my husband and other members of my family, where it was like, all right, this is like, if anybody else has any more emergency surgery, ever living mine.
Yeah.
And so like, and that, but having that support and that coaching from the mental aspect too, because the mental stress and the mental load can affect the physical,
especially with an autoimmune.
So much. Yeah.
Right.
It's all connected. The more stress that you're under, the worse your autoimmune, you're going to flare big time. Yeah. And so having that coach to not only work through the physical aspect of healing, but the mental aspect of healing, and coming up with like working through different techniques to bring the stress levels down and all that kind of stuff was just, it was so important.
How do we handle knowing that something is coming up that's really difficult, right? And how do we navigate through that process?
Without going to the worst case scenario, which is what I always did.
Right. Without going to the
and then he would talk me back up like, is this really like,
I don't know. Well, but having to go and figure out, okay, well, we know this is going to happen, right? Yep. Well, how are we going to handle how are we going to behave, and what are we going to do from our end to be the strongest version of ourselves for when that moment comes, right?
Right. Yeah. Binging on ice cream is not going to make it better.
Right.
It's that worst case scenario. Like, that's not going to rectify or solve whatever happens. Like, what can I tangibly do to actually make changes and positive changes to ensure that good things happen?
And, and in those moments where we may go off plan, it's also the support to say, okay, now how are we going to come back? Right? Yeah. How are we going to get back on track before we completely fall off the trail? Off the tracks completely, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, many of those moments and those ups and downs, and people need to remember that sometimes we have this incredible level of perfectionism. If we don't do something perfectly, then we shouldn't do it at all.
Guilty.
Right? Or we're a failure.
Yeah.
We're not doing it.
Yep.
Am I ever going to get better? And we just beat ourselves down so much.
Yep.
And I think it's so important. Yeah, it's so important to have this person and this back and forth, to help support you through these challenges, because we create a lot of stories in our mind that are not real.
Yeah. And, what was really helpful is that when I would get into that, I'm a failure, like, I can't stick with any of this. I can't, like, who do I think I am to think that I can do this? And you had such a great way of talking me back and be like, all right, you had a bowl of ice cream. You didn't have a pint. And you went back to your regularly scheduled meal plan the next day. Like, you're not a failure. You're
human.
Yeah, you're human. You indulge. Yeah. And now you're going back to make sure that you stay at a healthy maintenance or whatever it was at the time. Like, right. So but you were able to talk me out of that headspace where, because I guilt and I shame spiral into like this, I'm useless, I'm worthless, I'm not worthy of this work, or this, like, I'm just a failure. Everyone's going to laugh at me because, hey, she failed at this again. But no, it's compared to when I was trying to do it on my own, to when I would have those slip ups with you. Like, when I was having the failures on my own, it was like
crash and burn.
Yeah, when I had them with you, it was like, okay, we go take one step down, maybe, on this giant staircase that we've been working on, but I started down here, I'm way up here. This is only one step down instead of rolling down and breaking your spine, crashing at the bottom. It's a whole... I
love that analogy.
Yeah, I love that. It's a whole new ball game. It's... Yeah.
So another question that I had asked was, how would your life change as a result of achieving what you're looking for? And you said, more energy, happier, better emotional mental state for my kids and husband. So I know we've mentioned this, but do you think you've achieved that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, has it been perfect? No. There's still stresses that come up. I'm still working on my mindset and just trying to, especially with a lot of work stuff right now, it's a lot of, all right, that stays in that box over there. It doesn't bleed into everything else that I'm doing. And I've between both like holistic stuff, actual medicine stuff, I have tools to help make sure that I don't go down the staircase. Yeah. Roll down the stairs. Exactly. Because I'm a klutz. It takes a lot of work for me. It's a lot of work and a lot of concentration to keep going up the stairs without tripping.
I love that. So I know that after this, there's going to be so many people, so many women with Hashimoto's who are also struggling, who are that nerdy, weirdy moms, right?
Yep.
How can they find you? Where can they go if they want to reach out to you, for sure?
Yeah. So my website is thatweirdnerdymom.com. So you can find links to our Facebook community, to work with me as your coach for not I don't have the amazing health stuff, but like just if you're struggling with finding, if you've buried your true self for decades upon decades like I have, and you're ready to like stop morphing into other people to please everyone else, and you're ready to be yourself again, like that is the coaching that I do. You can also check out my books there. And then I'm on Instagram at that_weird nerdy mom. And I'd
love it.
Love for people to reach out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've already helped so many people, you know? Yes, your kids are adorable.
You get to see the cute kids and the cute dogs.
They're adorable. Yeah. And you've already helped so many people. There's so many, you know, so many more that are going to benefit just having you in their life. You have been a benefit to me. So you're an amazing human. And I'm so grateful that you allowed me in your life and to be part of this journey for you. I want to thank you for coming here, for sharing. And again, to anyone who is, you know, watching this, do not despair. If you're determined, if you're steadfast, you can do so much more than you think you can right now. Do not give up. You keep fighting. And you want to talk to Sarah, you know where to find her. You want to reach out to me, just, you know where to find me also. So thank you again. It's been wonderful.
This was awesome. Thank you so much for having me on and to chat. I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you, Linda.